Give me one. Okay, so now we're going to bring up our speakers. But before I do that, I want to bring up my co-host. This young lady was actually a speaker back when we had this event here in July, and she volunteered herself. So I thought it would be cool for us to kind of like tag team. I'm a public relations professional. She's an influencer. So let's bring up to the stage Mavi the Chef. Let's give Mavi the Chef.
Hi guys, so I'm super excited to be here with Vanessa co-hosting, and as she mentioned, I was here last year, and I'm just really excited to speak to some more PR people and influencers. So yeah.
So we're gonna like have some fun with these people. We're gonna bring up our speakers to the stage, and let's just like tag team and be very conversational, and have some fun with this.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring our speakers to the stage. We have Malika Kelly. Let's bring Malika Kelly up to the stage. And we have Javaris Floyd. Javaris, please come up to the stage. And we have Brittany Sykes. Elisa Marzano. And Kristen Wiley. So I don't know if you guys got the email, but I didn't want us to like take up too much time reading bios, so I sent it to you guys. You have everyone's bio. Also on that bio sheet, you have their social media handles. So as they're talking, please feel free to record, tag them, tag me. Use our social media hashtag, and let's have some fun. You ready?
Yeah, so ready.
First question.
All right, so I want to hear from all of you guys on this, influencers alike and PR pros. For PR, we'll start with PR pros. So for all of us that are on this panel, that are in the PR realm, what is earned media to you?
It's not on? Let's see. We might have to switch. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, so hi, Chris Wiley. So in terms of earned media, I think in the PR space, it was so interesting from when I first started in earned media value was this term that people would still use, but I felt like it was very archaic, where they would actually like take and calculate like impressions and then look at like what it would cost to get those impressions on even a newspaper, and then eventually it was Facebook or something like that, and compare them. So I think there's just a lot of like the boss wants to know what our media value is, but what they're giving them is just kind of some BS that they're letting them know. But I think the true earned media value is people, anyone outside of your organization talking about you that you didn't pay to do so. So that's how I define it.
Great answer. Who else wants to tag team on that, Brittany?
Yeah, that's basically what I agree with you. Basically trying to sell the journalist, the influencer, anyone, what the product is, what the service is, what the brand is, and having them actually believe in it and create stories based off of that. Because you're not paying for it, they basically have the final say of what's being said and written. So you also lose some control over that. Then there's advertorial, though that would be you're paying, but it's still kind of looks like an editorial piece, but it's sponsored and you're putting money behind it. But earned media is basically the story written by the journalist or the content creator and giving their opinion and their thoughts and the information that they find online. So if they fact check something or find something online that they see is there, they can run with that because it's there and you're not paying. So
Why do PR professionals think that's earned media? So I'll let Javaris, because he had a comment, and I'll let him tie his answer into that next question.
Say it again.
Why do PR people care about earned media? Why is that important?
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me, the Avon Agency, and thank you guys for coming out. Agency Avon, sorry. And thank you guys for coming out. I think that in terms of earned media, which is, I work with influencers a lot, and so a term that I've kind of made interchangeable for them to maybe chew on that a little bit easier is added value. And so I think it's important, one, to know what earned media is, and then two, to understand it because of essentially its impact, right? We're talking about media that's not paid for or something that you're not exchanging or being compensated for. So essentially, I think it begs this understanding of something that is important or of value or newsworthy. And so I think it's important for a myriad of reasons, but specifically because it is the media that I think is prioritized based on its importance and based on the outlet. So if it's not being paid for, it has somehow made its way to the top or made its way, in front of you, however that's happened. So I think that's why it's important.
Okay, so now, also because I'm a content creator, I'm always curious to hear from other content creators. How do you guys feel about, tagging each and every brand that you're wearing? And as it pertains to earned media, do you get responses from brands when you do tag them? And how do you look at media that's not paid for? As in, like, when you're talking about a brand, but you're not being paid to talk a brand, how do you feel about that? And what are kind of the repercussions of that?
I guess I'll start. Hi guys. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for having us. Do we tag every brand that we wear, every product that we use, everything that we do? Yes and no. I think that part of it is that you, as a creator on this journey, have decided to be in service to your audience and to informing them about things that are of quality, that are cost efficient, that are like whatever you talk about that they follow and engage with you for. So if you know that they follow you for purple fashion, then you have a responsibility to continue to share it on purple fashion. Does that mean you tag every single thing you're wearing? Does that mean you only ever wear cheap stuff? No. But I think that it is part of your job and your journey to be sharing and informing your audience about things that should be of value to them, while also maintaining boundaries. So you don't tag every restaurant you're at, you don't tag every single thing you do, because that's just, it's just big. It's like, yeah, you got me products on my face in a day. Like, there's no way I can tag everybody in a story. And I think it just really, depends on your content strategy and how you relate to your audience. I also don't think that you should charge every brand for mention. I think it's quite tiny, so. Yeah.
Sure, okay. Elisa, do you wanna, Lisa Mark?
Hello, thank you guys. Sorry for my Sofia Vergara English. It's not the best one, but yeah. To me, because I love to bring value for all my posts, for my mamas, I have a lot of moms in my social media. I always post everything because I love fashion. I love every piece of clothes. I don't know, it's more for love and for, put like a value in every post. It's more for that. And sometimes brand, they reach me out, hey, I saw my branding, but I do it for put more value and tell the girls how you can put like a Forever 21 blouse, like a $20 blouse with maybe a nice bag,
Yeah,
Like,
you gotta mix and match.
yes,
Yeah,
so,
sure.
yeah. Oh, no.
So how do you guys, let's hear from the influencers, how do you guys feel about PR and marketing professionals reaching out to you for earned media? So for example, you guys talked about how you incorporate earned media just based upon your normal everyday lifestyle. If you're gonna go to Target, Target's part of your normal everyday lifestyle because that's part of your errands. You're gonna tag Forever 21 because you've already shopped at Forever 21. But let's say they wanna get a new brand that's maybe not on your radar, something that they want you to talk about. How do you feel about them like sending you free stuff and, hoping that you would, give feedback and things of that nature?
I think the last thing you said is very important, the feedback, because we rarely, I think, get asked for feedback and honest feedback on a product. So I would love to be more involved with testing things out before launch and kind of getting to help finalize formulas or colors to tweak them to, again, serve consumers and serve audiences. what we often get is requests for posting random stuff. Sometimes not even requests, like your address just magically gets out there and then stuff just like comes and it's kind of creepy. So I guess my approach to earned media had to change a little bit just because I'm changing my content strategy to kind of make it more fun for me to do and also hopefully more engaging to my audience. So that means I'm a little more picky about what I do with my post, but I still think it's an important part of a business strategy and it still has a place, in a PR mix.
Wait, so you've never been asked for your feedback before? Really?
Not prior to it coming out, like not in kind of like a testing phase. Like it's been like post about it and share your honest thoughts, but hopefully those are positive thoughts.
Yeah. No, it's never like PR.
Wait. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Kay, big family. I have Instagram, YouTube, and a website. Well, I do get emails a lot from different PR companies to post something for them. Either free or charged.
And what they do actually for your feedback,
Or
just in general.
feedback for their products.
Yes. Or services.
Yeah, they do.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we got one person, PR and marketing pros. How do you guys feel about that? Pass the mic.
We actually done several campaigns for just for product feedback and don't even require posting.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll send the product and ask them just for their honest feedback on. Sometimes it's just the branding. Sometimes they're reformulating, and we actually ask them, like, do you like this? So we've done a handful of those, and our influencer network do really like them. So we'd love more brands to do them. It would be really cool. But that is interesting that she brought that up because we have seen those be pretty successful.
Awesome. Brittany, Javiris.
Yeah, a lot of the times it's, I think, depending on where you are, whether it's an agency or at a company, it's more of a conversation to have. I know I kind of work in the middle that I manage and work with influencers, but also work with different brands and companies. I'm always trying to have the conversation about bringing the creators onto the campaign early, bringing them to the table, before we even decide how we're going to utilize them so that you can have their feedback, ahead of time so that you can utilize their creative prowess in whatever way works best for their audience so that we don't get way down the line and then it's, hey, how much for this post that, may or may not fit with what it is that you put out organically anyway. So I think that a lot of that conversation is starting to happen. And we'll start seeing a little bit more of it, but I think it probably is a slower build because from the onset of influencer marketing, it kind of started as this pay-for-play or post strategy. So I think as it continues to grow and people continue to be educated more about it, I think we'll start to see more of the influencers being brought to the table earlier and also getting their feedback a little bit earlier as well.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, I've asked for feedback from journalists and influencers, especially if they pass on something, just to get an idea of what will work in the future, see if the product, that's just not a fit in general and why, even if it looks like it might be. So just getting that feedback and learning for my own purposes, but also so I can be sure that I'm pitching and sharing products that are actually appropriate and not wasting anyone's time as well.
Just so I can get a taste of who's in the audience, raise your hand if you're an influencer. Raise your hand if you're in marketing or public relations. Okay, cool.
Neat. Okay, so I think that was really interesting to kind of hear from both sides. But I want to ask you guys, why do some digital influencers consider earned media BS? As in, like, why do you guys kind of not pay to meet? Why do you not like it? Give me your thoughts on that. Sorry, it's kind of funny to be asking these questions as an influencer myself because I'm kind of like,
Feel free to jump in on me.
No, I want to hear from them. It's their time.
It's so funny because when I read the question, I say to my husband, "Papi, what is BS?" Oh my God, can you explain me what is Yeah, so now I know. Oh my God, can you repeat the question?
Okay. Why do some digital influencers consider earned media BS?
I don't consider, earned media like a BS. But sometimes I love when PR brands try to make a good relationship,
Right.
like a very nice, I'm a very lovely person, I love, connections, but some brands, they send you oh, I send you this serum, it's $300, good for you, but
Yeah.
can you please, I don't know, tell me about the product and we can do something, but don't send me the product and pretend in 1 week,
Yeah.
when I have a lot of work, a lot of products and, collaborations first to post. So, I think PR companies and PR people, they need to create a good relationship
Yeah.
with influencers. I have for 2 weeks, I have a post ready for one skincare brand, so beautiful, but they don't pay me nothing, but I love the way they reach out. Oh my God,
Yeah.
they see that I translate everything in both in Spanish and English. They know I am Puerto Rican. They know I have 2 kids, the girl.
Yeah.
So, that touched my heart. I don't know, maybe I like that, but I say, girl, I will post for you. Don't worry,
Yeah.
So it's a good way. If you work in PR, don't be, because
Yeah.
I have boxes in home full of product. Thanks God. I don't mean, like your serum, I understand, but I don't need your serum. I have boxes.
Right.
I make giveaways every week to my followers because I don't know what to do with all that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I think oftentimes people forget that this is it's still a people-to-people business, right? Like we are, instead of making it a cold, just like business exchange, it's more about like getting to know each other, us getting to know the brands, and the brands getting to know us, so that we can have a creative synergy. And so I really like what you said. I think that's very true.
Malik, I want to hear what you have to say. It's gonna be a bit of a rant. Okay, just so you guys know, this is a safe space. This is the reason why we're having this. This is not to be nice and cute. I mean, at the end of the day, we are going to be nice and cute and be, have relationships at the end of the day. But this was an honest conversation that I felt was like an elephant in the room, and people didn't want to talk about it, and I wanted to talk about it. So don't play nice.
I love that.
So, I mean, I guess just as she was saying, you probably saw my face, I was like, that, I wrote it a little bit, not at you, but I guess because I remember when I first started, I had like 1,000 followers, and I was begging for products, like begging for things to post about it, and like no one's trying to hear it if you're like a new creator, especially in many cases a creator of color, they're just like not at all interested until you like get a swipe up. So it's kind of like part of it. And then also as a marketer, I specialize in paid media versus earned media, which is different in a lot of ways, but mostly in the way that we strategize how we buy our media, who we're targeting. It's all demographic and analytics based, whereas like earned media to me is kind of just like throwing a bunch of shit on the walls and seeing what sticks. So that is my opinion. And I guess I just also feel like it has bred kind of like a culture of laziness between both PR professionals and influencers, in the sense that we're going to send a bunch of product out to people who look cute on Instagram. They're going to do an unboxing on their story, and then we're going to say we got 100,000 impressions from it because everyone opened the box. And that's not adding any value. That's not showing a brand impression. That's not teaching your followers how to use this product and why it matters. And you're creating boring content that everyone else on Instagram is doing. And it's actually posted on my story a couple of months ago why I'm not doing unboxings anymore, because they're just terrible. And I basically asked people, like, do you give an F about me opening my mail? And the answer is pretty much a dead no. But show us tutorials, show us try-on hauls, show us things you actually like and how you actually use it. So now that's kind of informing how I create my content and making my job harder and taking more time. And also meaning that I'm posting less for brands that send me stuff, because I take more time to get through it and think about how I use it.
I think you heard the answer between their two. It was like 2 examples of what I think is the reason that either PR pros or influencers feel like earned media is BS, and that's because a lot of the times the brand or the company has not done a good job of contextualizing what it is that they're trying to promote, right? So it's one thing when you feel like you have a personal relationship with the brand or the representative of the brand who reaches out and knows on Tuesdays you drop a Tuesday video, or who knows, you have children that you go through the tedious thing of translating all of your stuff, for your audience. That's the person you want to post for. That's the person who you want to figure out how to work together with. And a lot of times it's up to the marketing and PR pros, to contextualize that for the influencer or for the ambassador, whoever they're trying to work with, so that you can have more of a conversation around earned media. The other part, having come from an agency, I would say is that a lot of times the higher ups aren't doing the greatest job of even explaining what it is you're working on. So you're tasked with going to get X amount of influencers very quickly to post tomorrow, and we need addresses. So half the time, the PR pros and the marketing pros are scurrying to get addresses and make relationships in a day to get your ad. How do you make a relationship with somebody through DM in the same day and ask them for their home mailing address to send them something they didn't ask before? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there are hiccups in every part of the situation, but I think probably the one thing that I try to practice, either if I'm working with a company and I'm reaching out to an influencer, or if I am managing an influencer and they're, either trying to get the attention of a company they like, or a company trying to get their attention, is the understanding of, to your point earlier, this is still a people-to-people business. And so past the box, the bottle, the product, the whatever, it's a person back there. And you got to figure out, are you dealing with someone who's at their job and so could care less about who you are and what they're sending you, or someone who's passionate about whatever they're doing and wants to connect and wants to see not only if they can send you something to help them out a little bit, but welcomes your feedback, wants to know what you think so that they can tell their boss, hey, it might not do anything, but I would love to know what you think because I'm out here shipping these boxes to people. And I don't, that even a little bit of that, I think, will open up a door for somebody to realize it's another person inside of this. So instead of just saying no, let me, see what the conversation is here. Because typically that's the conversation that leads to paid media or paid and, fee-based type of integration.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
I have a question too for the PR pros, because I've seen as a PR pro, I totally understand where my influencers are coming from, and I'm riding that boat with you. But as a PR professional, we have ran into walls where we may have identified someone who looks like, oh, this would be great. I look, like you said, I know how many kids you got. I know you got a husband, a son, a dog, a cat, and a mouse. And, I know that you go to this place every day to see what you eat for dinner. I know that you work out at LA Fitness, oh, this would be great. And then they only say, I only do paid. And then you have that, I would not work with you unless it's paid. And I wanted to talk to my PR professionals, like, have you run into that wall where the influencer is just not open-minded about earned media at all?
Yeah, all the time. Multiple times a day. But that's why, with PR too, it's like planting so many seeds. My whole thing with PR too is when I started out, I started about 10 years ago. So traditional press was the biggest thing. Instagram wasn't really around yet. Influencers were really a thing. It just really came in the past few years. So I started out really a lot of media relations and finding ways to organically get my clients in the press. But lately you're seeing more and more magazines shut down and online, layoffs happening, publications, going away in general. So to keep up with PR, you also have to adjust your strategy. And a lot of it is going into influencer marketing, and marketing is different in PR, and I think with PR marketing, there is a little bit more cost behind it. However, I focus a lot more on lifestyle and consumer startup brands that don't have as big of budgets. So I try and find ways to be as scrappy as possible, and a lot of times I do have to pass on opportunities, but providing products, especially products that they actually would like, a lot of times I do find that they'll still post. They will be able to sometimes waive the fees. Typically right now, just as I mentioned, being in startups, it's hard to do actual pay to play. But for example, I work with a company called Blue Nation. It's like Etsy, but for flowers. So it's a marketplace. So we'll send flowers to certain influencers occasionally in the future, and everyone loves flowers. If it's Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, basically getting free flowers that they'd be finding anyways, and they'll typically post it on social media. But the paying upfront is a little hard, at least for the general PR person. I think it starts to go into more digital marketing in that sense at points.
Kristen?
Yeah, so that's a great question about the paid. I mean, we run a full, pretty much earned media platform. We do 75% of our collaborations are for gifting alone. And I created it because I actually was on the influencer side, and I had a blog, and I would get pitched brands. I was a food and baking blogger, and I get pitched like mattress companies. I was telling them before, and I get pitched people who never looked at my platform. And I was still going out and buying all these recipes, and I would get some cool collabs, whatever, Hershey's or Coca-Cola, whatever. But I was still going out and paying stuff, and I was like, why isn't there just like a cool place I can go to see products that match me, and I can pick them if I want them or not if I don't. So that's the concept of our platform is influencers log in, they see 4 to 5 items that are matched with them, they pick the ones they want in exchange for the actions that are listed. If they don't want any, or if they have a whole content calendar, just skip the month, it's fine. So some influencers claim once every month, some claim once a year, it's fine. But it was always a big thing to me where I didn't want them to ever feel devalued because I know how much work they're doing. So it's always this like really fine line between making sure that you're showing their value. So we actually don't accept influencers that are over a certain follower count because we've noticed that like they just get in and then they're just disappointed. And they'll even like be like, why aren't you letting me in? And we're like, we'll let you in, but then they get in and they're like, there's no hate. And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to explain. So it's like this very fine line, but we also try to encourage all of our brands, kind of what you were saying before, cast a wide net with our platform, but then pick your favorite influencers and do a more extensive collaboration. Because it's so hard to tell until an influencer actually has the product in their hands sometimes how it's gonna work. So like do a little, they claimed it because they liked it, but then like, oh wow, she just killed it. Like we should do a long-term brand ambassador program. So we try to encourage them to do plans like that. And like I said, we do work with the micros who typically it's not their full-time job. Because I really don't want to insult somebody, what they're doing is incredible, and putting yourself out there like that is incredible. So it is just such a fine line. So we just try to create our platform like that way, but I totally understand where everyone's coming from on that sense.
Yeah, I to kind of piggyback on what she was saying, I understand when you're working with some of the smaller companies who don't necessarily have a budget to throw out money to influencers, it can be sticky because it's not necessarily a way you can go around, not working with influencers at this point in the game, specifically for certain things, right? And so when I'm consulting with brands, a lot of times I'm having a conversation, which I mentioned earlier, about bringing creators to the campaign early. So there is a way to kind of build them into what it is you're doing and give them a little bit of creative collateral so that not only they feel like they're being, considered, right? That they're, not only are you wanting to tap into their audience, but you're also wanting to know their thinking process. What have they learned from having this type of audience? These are things that I'm telling, startups or companies who don't necessarily have a big budget in ways that they can, get with influencers and to have influencers be a part of, what it is that they're trying to do. But it's important because it's still valuing the person that has the influence that's bringing something to the table. And a lot of the times, depending on who you're working with, like I work a lot in the film and TV space. So I'm working with a lot of influencers who at some point want to be an actor or an actress or have a production company or write something. And so if I'm able to work with a film studio or a TV network who doesn't necessarily want to shell out $50,000, but wants influencers on the campaign, we may create, a creators day at the studio. And we may have, a writer from the writer's room, a director come, and we may do a 2-hour workshop with creators, with influencers that we not only want the campaign, but that we also want to engage throughout the film study of the year. And so even when I talk to influencers or creators, in terms of things like that, those are things that excite them. Those are things that they feel like they would come to, paid or not. And for the brand, the company, it's a win because you're getting their intel, you're getting them excited about, what it is you're trying to promote, but then you build a relationship with them. So when you come back around and you need something from them, they understand, kind of what it is that you rolled out for them. And typically they're happy to play with you because there should be more coming down the line. You should be thinking about it as time goes on. So that's one of the ways that I think you can kind of make that situation a little bit better when it comes to, trying to figure out earned media as opposed to people who just want to be paid. Because the other side of it is I get it, like, especially if you're full time, yeah, everything I'm post needs to be paid. What's the question? You know what I mean? So
Yeah. I want to give a little context because I think there are some influencers that are like, yes, everything that I do needs to be paid. And the reason why, and I wanted to give some context as to why some PR professionals push back on that. And I wanted to put out there that it's not because we don't value you. It's because when you talk about something that wasn't paid for, it has a little bit more credibility to it. So it's like, well, is Nike really that great? Because she was paid to say that. So does she really like Nike, or is she just really saying that because she was paid to say it? But if we're developing a relationship where, like Javera said, allowing you to interact with the brand, we're inviting you to events you can participate in, Q&As with the founders and creators and see the behind the scenes of that and let you be a part of that and really get to like it. And then you talk about that's the win for us. And I think sometimes there's a wall there to even invite you, or not you, but some influencers hey, we want you to at least come see. You don't even have to post anything right now. We just want you to come see what we're talking about. Let's play. And they're like, no, but unless you pay me, I'm not going to show up. And it's hard to develop that relationship when there's that wall there. But I will say I can understand it because even I've been doing this event since 2017, and I have learned that some PR professionals have taken advantage of you guys. That they will send information and say, okay, here's some nail polish. By tomorrow, I need you to post 3 posts, and I need to look like this. I had absolutely no idea that I had colleagues that were doing that. And I think what we're here to show you is that from the PR standpoint, we're all not like that. And I think there needs to be a velvet rope. Okay, let's see what you're about, at least listen and say, and then it's no, that's not for me, as opposed to just having that wall, because it's like a magazine. You guys, influencers, you guys are the new magazines. Magazines are going out of print, and everyone's looking at you to find out about new products and things like that. And when you look at a magazine, you look at a Vogue, you open up Vogue, and Vogue has editorial, and it has paid advertisement. And we're hoping to develop that relationship with you where, yes, we're still going to engage with you for the paid advertisement, but how can we develop this relationship with you so we're also part of that editorial content as well?
And I think you kind of just said it, which is building the relationship, right? On one end, it is how you're engaging and reaching out, whether it's paid or not. But, for the sake of, hey, we have a mixer where we're going to unveil the release of the new Nike shoe. That's exciting, right? A red carpet moment, a moment where you can capture content. We're doing the video gift that you're able to post later, up to you. But I think it's about curating and creating moments that don't necessarily call for post this versus let us bring you into that world. The other side of it for influencers and creators is being smart. Talent and certain creators that I manage, ask me all the time about brands that they want to work with that haven't reached out versus all these brands that want to work with them that they're not really concerned about. The question is, how are you leveraging what you have? If this brand that you want to work with hasn't reached out, but you won't do anything for any other brands, how does this brand know that you're doing that type of stuff? So it's making sense of what's at the table, right? For instance, I have a client who works with the LVMH. She does things for Fendi, Louis Vuitton, XYZ. So there'll be influencers who ask her, how did you get a partnership with them? Or how they don't even do that. They don't even pay influencers. But the idea is what type of collaborations she was doing before they approached her and how they saw the value that she put into her content. And it might not have been at the level that they're at, right? But they said, she'll do that at this level with what she's given. What won't she do with our stuff? You know what I mean? And now she's, unofficially a brand ambassador for the LVMH movement. So she posts stuff that she doesn't have to put ad behind or that is authentic. And it's because of a bigger partnership she has that makes what she's posting not an ad.
I'm not gonna put you on mute because you keep going and going, and I see Malvika and Malika, their faces are lit up, so I'm gonna let Malvika and Malika say some words. I'm gonna open it up to the audience so you guys can ask me some questions as well.
I'll let Malika go first.
I guess we talked a lot about relationship building. I think that it's kind of one of the cornerstones of what we do as professionals. And I know that even as a marketing manager, I pass influencers all the time. I don't pass anybody I don't like. If I don't like how you respond to my email, if I don't like our interactions, I don't care how good your numbers are. If I don't like you, if you annoy me, I will never work with you again. Even if you did drive like super incremental sales, I don't like you. And I think that's kind of having to think about as people, like if someone's reaching out to you for something that's not paid, at the end of that day, it's just another person trying to do their job. So there's no need to be like a jerk about it. And you can just very politely reject things. You can very politely say, I don't have time for this now. Circle back in a couple of weeks. I'm not interested in this product. What else do you have? Like there are ways to kind of pass on opportunities without fully closing the door. And I also think that brands and PR professionals can do a better job just engaging with influencers before they're asking for something. So do you watch my stories? Do you like my posts? Do you comment? Do you invite me to things that, just are fun, not like, oh, post about this? So I think we all can kind of do it in both ways.
Well said.
Yeah, I definitely agree with her. I think my one thought is that as a creator, like I've seen like my stages of like only doing gifting campaigns and then kind of doing both, and then like still I do both. And I think that the main thing that I think about is if someone's reaching out and wants to do a gifted only collab, I never just say no right off the bat. I'm like, okay, what are you looking for? What's the bigger messaging that you want in this campaign? I want to see how I can fit you into my content calendar. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think the thing is as creators, we love what we do so much that we want opportunities to create the best content possible. And if you're on that ride with us, we will take you with us no matter what. Whether you have a budget, whether you don't, like we want you on the ride and we want you to help us. If you're supporting us and doing what we do best, then I think that, there's always room for you. And I think another thing that I've been doing is I understand a lot more how much being a content creator and influencer, surviving in today's landscape means that you have to be a great person in general. It's not even just about like your numbers, how many followers you have, your content. It's about how much respect you give people. And I think I ventured recently into the more, I've been doing some commercial acting, commercial modeling for the past few months, and learning about how that is so much of people's industry, and respecting people's time, respecting people, and getting back to them on time and everything. That I've just been applying so much more to what I do as an influencer, and it's changed. Like it's really changed the game for me. Like reaching back out to people, even when they haven't responded to an email for a little bit. Like I'll reach back out and just make sure everything's okay. Small things like that. Just recognize that there's a person behind the screen that wants to work with you as a person. And yeah, again, just remembering it's a people-to-people business. So yeah.
Right, and it's like sometimes as a PR person, I think we forget public relations stands for public relations, relationships. It's our job to develop relationships. And it's not about always just the client or the product. It's about relationship, because at the end of the day, like, yes, the client is who's paying us, but if we burn these bridges with these individuals, then no matter what client we have, we will never get them results because we burned all these bridges with all these different people. Question. Okay, we have one over here. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a caveat. Just to keep it inconsistent, keep everything consistent, like let's stay within topic, let's, try not to go into the, so how did you get your followers up to this? Let's say that for the conversation.
I have a question.
Wait.
For you. Oh, yes, okay. My name is Brittany K. Jackson. I'm a journalist by trade. I work with a lot of PR professionals, so I'm learning a lot here, especially about earned media and just that relationship. So thank you all for being here. My question is, I recently watched a video a while ago about a micro influencer turned major influencer who was accepting products from a now major fashion brand, which is, she said it's Fashion Nova, and she utilized that relationship, those products, to build her brand. So she's posting consistently every single day. She's wearing the product. She's getting, her brand her numbers are growing tremendously. But then her major influence is no longer major anymore because now she's competing up against celebrities who are getting paid. So she ends up getting burned when she now says, hey, I want an opportunity to get paid as well. So my question for you all is, how can a micro influencer protect themselves on a front end as they're climbing that influence branding ladder? Is there any way that they can protect themselves for major fashion brands or companies who at some point overutilize the earned media?
I would say I don't know about protecting yourself, but I also say that I know, and I'm sure everyone up here also gets the message, things like, oh, we can't pay for this post, why don't you just do it this time? And then maybe next time we'll see if we can swing some budget if we like working with you, right? Like I'm sure everyone has heard that before. And sometimes you're like, do I take a chance on this and like do it and then come back later and maybe get paid, maybe don't, or do I just like say it up front and demand what I want? And I don't know, I don't have the answer. I think that, obviously we as influencers, a lot of you do get some cachet working with certain brands, even if they're just gifting you. And then the way we have to disclose, it's very subtle between being gifted and paid. So most people at a glance won't even know that they didn't pay you. So I can kind of almost spin it in your favor to kind of give you more of that cachet. But as far as them taking advantage of you and like not paying you when they're paying other people, it's really just, you can't control how they allocate their budgets, and I don't think it's really anything that you can do other than say, I won't work with them anymore.
I think I just want to add a small little bit to that. It's really important. I like to apply the Marie Kondo method to anything I do in life, and I feel like if it excites you, if it's a brand that excites you, no matter what, just do it. Like you're here to create the best thing that you can possible. So if it excites you, just do it. Like I think that's the best philosophy that I've had so far.
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit off of what they both said. Namely, I don't know that there is one way or a certain way to protect yourself as you continue to grow. I think that you have to be smart about it. I think as you start to grow, you start to understand that this is the makings of a business. And so if you treat it like such, then you start to use the same qualifications and stipulations that you would as you're building a business, right? And so as you grow, at some point, that 10,000 follower growth, count turned into 100. But at some point, you have to say, okay, well, I need to talk to this brand again. I need to figure out if there's a competing brand. Like you have to, be a bit smart about this and not wait until, you've gotten so far up the ladder where you don't have negotiation power because, outside of some really nice people, like that's the way business works. And so you can be at a company for years in the same position, and if you're not looking to be promoted, then they're not promoting you because, so I think, you just have to think about it in that sense when you think about protecting yourself. It's great to grow, it's great to have followers, but with that comes new things, and kind of to what she's saying, as a content creator, a part of it is your job is to create content. So whether or not it's always paid, I think is one thing. But I'm having conversations with my creators and explaining to them, like nowadays, the talent, the creator is the one who essentially has the say so. And so if there's a brand or a company that you're looking to work with that you want to work with, create the content and then show it to them. Show them what they're missing by not having you on the campaign yet. You want to, be a North Face ambassador. Create the North Face campaign, buy a few things and, shoot a lookbook and show them why you're, that's one way to do it. But, we're having those conversations with creators now because a lot of these brands are trying to catch up and so the influencers are in control. That's kind of my take.
Brittany and Chris, do you have any feedback before I jump in?
When I was doing the blogging, it was a food blog, started as a passion project. Wasn't getting paid, did some freebie stuff. Then when I started working on the brand side, I was like, oh, people get paid for this. And it changed my whole outlook. So I think that's what you're saying. I made myself a press kit. I would do a campaign for free and I would pull all the stats. So it's so rare that an influencer can pull all the stats, but I knew what the brand was looking for. So I would pull these stats and I'd be like, look at what I'm pulling you, look at what I'm doing. I'd even boost it. You're like, my boosted post went this much higher than your post. And then I would get paid more. And I would talk to my influencer friends and they'd be like, you got paid double what I got paid. And I'm like, got it. Like it's there's no like normal in this. Yeah. Like it's somebody with 2,000 followers can be getting paid once in 10 or It's just insane. It's really how you package yourself. So I just think that's really interesting. Like when I started realizing on the other side, like what I was missing, just packaging yourself.
A quick one line, know how to explain your value to a brand and you will be fine with this business. Just know how to explain your value.
Brittany, did you have something?
Sure. So I do actually, in a way, I do this too, but with new business, if I'm in talks with someone who I'm really excited about to represent or whatnot, I will show them what I can do at no cost at all. Like, this is what I can do, you know, if you bring me on, like, these are the type of presents, you know, I can't guarantee because I'm here, I can't guarantee, or traditional price. But I just show them and let them know, and, you know, as, you know, the business is, it really is a relationship business, so I don't wait for that check to necessarily come in. I show them what I do because I believe in the product, I believe in their story, and I offer them, you know, complimentary work, even if they're not necessarily big.
And that's the type of thing that will get you noticed, like from brands.
I like to cut you off. You always talking. Stop. I gotta stop because I got something to say too. I'm just kidding. But no, because you're about to say something I was about to say. I was like itching to say it. Free stuff. Okay. If you are doing something for free, like let's say a person is doing a Fashion Over campaign and they never got paid for it, I would be keeping track of what my Fashion Over campaigns would be doing. And if Fashion Nova never paid me, I would go to Fashion Nova's competitor or something similar and say, hey, look, I was doing this Fashion Nova campaign, but when I did this Fashion Nova, like their visibility spiked by this much, like show your numbers. So even if someone is coming to you with a free campaign, I would even look at it as a free campaign. I would use it as an opportunity to develop metrics and to develop that media kit. So when you are asking for money, you have all these different campaigns in your back pocket to say, this is what my post can do. This is what happens when you integrate me into your campaign. So that was the one thing that I really wanted to say was I take these paid opportunities, these free opportunities to develop your media kit. I had sent out an email asking everyone to bring their media kit. Did anyone bring a media kit? One person brought a media kit. Does everybody have a media kit?
She does too.
Okay, cool. So if you're an influencer, you have to have a media kit and show your numbers. I actually just had a conversation. I work with a couple of music artists, and they are influencers within their own right as well. And a couple of them were saying, yeah, I should be getting these brand endorsements. I'm like, why? Like, why should anyone pay you money just because you are a wonderful singer? Why should anyone pay you money because you know how to cook? Like, it's not about how well you do what you do. It's about, am I going to get a return on my investment if I give you my money? So even when it does come to the time where we do have the budget, we want to pay you, the money is going where they think it's going to be given back to them. So they're going to pay a Cardi B a Fashion Nova check because they know if Cardi B is talking about Fashion Nova, whatever they pay her, they're going to get that back times 10. Are they going to get their money back with you? And so those are things that you have to consider when you are asking brands for money. Okay, take it back.
Oh,
Okay, never mind. Any other questions? Who has questions?
I have a quick question. Actually, this is something, like, I definitely agree with you, but sometimes I wonder, like, does that also mean that, because I like to consider myself outside of just my numbers and more just like my creative value and the way that I style things, or, you know, if I bring like certain brands with me to wear to Fashion Week and then I'm, you know, captured by a photographer or something like that happens. Like, it's not necessarily translated in my post metrics, but I think that there are values that PR people can look at that are outside of likes, comments, and followers.
Exactly.
So, question to you guys, with those kinds of things, when it's, you can't really measure the ROI, but you can see that, like, it's definitely had some kind of impact. You know, I'm wearing something to a fashion show, or I'm, you know, going to a big event and I'm wearing your brand and I'm photographed by several different people and on different platforms that are not my own. How do you go about that? And like, yeah, just like how do you navigate that?
So, I mean, part of being an influencer and a creator is that you are a business and you have operating expenses as any business does. So your internet, your equipment, your camera, your cost of creative production, your cost of editing. If you have to do hair and makeup, you outsource all those things. You outsource our operating expenses. You should know what those are, and you should have a budget. And then you need to think about recouping that in all of your paid work. So you need to allocate, I guess, a portion of what you charge to covering those expenses and making sure you are able to turn a profit. So it's not just finding an audience. Like, no one would go to an ad agency and say, we're only paying for the impressions and clicks you drive. Like, you're paying a setup fee, you're paying for the employees that work on that campaign, you're paying for the creative and the usage rights. So you should think about yourself as like, I'm a one-woman agency, what does it cost to hire me? And then what does it cost to have what I create with my audience?
Absolutely.
And I think it's worth it if you know you create high quality creative. Like, the price of images shot professionally are more than the price of a selfie in the mirror, I think. Especially if you're someone who has overhead associated with creating content.
Yeah, and so a lot of times I get the question about like, what's like cost per impression, right? So, I guess the question to you guys is, do you think that influencers should just be paid on a cost per impression? Or do you think that it should be a lot more than that because we do have creative value?
Yeah, I think we need to weigh in all that. We need to weigh in everything we bring to the table. And then also even like licensing it for brands using your image, you have a right to charge for that. If they're using it just on social versus in an email versus on their website, you can charge more based on how they intend to use it. So
I would jump into because you were talking about your value is more than your metrics, and I totally agree with that. And I think for those who can't really look at their metrics or they don't have the metrics to really show, there's other ways that you can prove your value by, like you said, the number of engagements as far as the conversation. Did this conversation get pulled into another conversation somewhere like, oh, someone started talking about it here, and then this conversation went over here, and this conversation got picked up over here. Are you someone who is getting picked up by other, like Marvika? I know that you've been featured in some publications, so by that's the leverage that you have outside of just your platform where you are showing your value. Are you speaking? So when you come speak on things like this, like, hey, I just got through talking and I mentioned your brand and I was in front of an audience of 50 people, and I do that on a regular basis. There's a lot of different ways that you can show your worth beyond the metrics that you have on your platform. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I think kind of to culminate what I think everyone up here is saying is that we live in the age of storytelling. And so it's the same thing that brands are looking to do to get their product out to you is what they are essentially, in so many words, or not necessarily directly, they're telling you to do with them. So yeah, you may be more than your metrics, but what is the story that you're able to tell, right? Your metrics don't show that everybody likes that post, but you got 4 press hits off of the post, right? Yeah, the value is succeeded now, the metric, but at the same time, yes, know your metrics, right? You don't buy from certain businesses because they don't advertise to you how great they are and what awards they win, XYZ metrics. So again, as you start to become an influencer or a creator, and you start to have an audience, you have to take yourself seriously and as a business, and therefore, create these tools that you need so that when you are shopping brands or meeting with people, they can take you as seriously as you are.
You guys have got to lighten up. I need you guys to ask some questions. Okay, here we go. Say your name, who you are.
Okay. Great evening. My name is Vivian Armstrong. I am an actress and voiceover artist, and I have an interest in influencing, particularly with plus clothing lines. And I would like to understand, because I'm into this influencing life, what is considered an influencer? And then I'm also hearing micro influencer being tossed out. So what are the numbers that you guys gauge to decipher what that is? And then what would be a recommendation you would give to someone who's interested in going into influencing and reaching out to particular brands in a certain line, like clothing?
I think that the numbers of growth and follower numbers kind of range based on who you're talking to. As we know, influencer marketing specifically isn't a regulated industry necessarily, and so that can kind of switch. But typically, depending on where you are, when people say micro influencers, they can be talking about someone who has anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 followers up to as like 10. And so it depends on the platform again, it depends on what specifically you're talking about. Doesn't mean that if you have 1,000 followers, you're not as influential as somebody with 10. So again, there's no, I hate to give a number because it makes you feel like the one follower you're missing, you're not in, it's not true. It's just your ability to influence, right? So for instance, I know some of my colleagues who work at certain companies that, you know, when I say the names of them, everybody goes, oh, you work at Netflix or YouTube or Hulu, right? These are people who are influential and may have your favorite showrunner, your favorite actress following them, but don't have a lot of followers. That doesn't mean they're not influential. It doesn't mean when they say you're the newest voiceover on this animated film that the people that are following them can make a move or can come, you know, pick you up and put you in a brand campaign. So I think that's the difference numbers wise. And then when you think about what you can kind of do to continue to build your influence, I think it's kind of what she said earlier, which is taking certain opportunities and creating content around them. So even if nobody is reaching out to you necessarily, what are the things that you're doing in your everyday life? What are you using? What coffee mug do you love the best? Where are you going and patronizing and spending your time? These are places that you would organically tag or mention. You know, I love going to the coffee shop up the street, and now I get, you know, free coffee every X amount of time. So we have a partnership with when I post, you know, they give me free coffee. You start out small, but you make the most of that content. I think it'll help you build not only your influence, but then your followers.
Yeah, I'd say before you start focusing on working with brands, I'd focus on cultivating your audience and just building that relationship and like not just getting more followers, but knowing who's following you. And also reducing unfollowers is like way underrated. People always talk about getting followers, but the fact is like everyday people unfollow you. People unfollow you every time you post. You need to have more people sticking than when you leaving. So focus on keeping the people that engage with you and keeping them happy and again like driving value before we start working like selling yourself to other brands.
Yes, questions over here. You and then Molly. Y'all gotta make Molly work. She on that side of the room. She's not doing anything.
So my name is Joe Berman. I do podcast ad sales and I like to say brand partnerships. I notice a lot of the word influencers thrown out, PRs thrown out, etc., and collaborations thrown out. What do you think about the term brand partnerships to really see it as a matchmaking process? Sometimes it's free, sometimes it's paid, and rates and like was mentioned a number of times. It's not just the number of influencers, but followers, but it's really all of your creative assets, the way you engage with your audience, your niche, etc. It's really, to me, it's like selling more of an art project than an ROI business plan, so to speak. So I don't know. I tend to use the word brand partnerships. I'm just curious what your thoughts on that are.
I love the word brand partnerships. I try to influence, or I try to explain to influencers and creators like that. To me, is the goal versus a campaign which has a beginning and an end date. Most partnerships you can extend. You can think about, you know, other ways to bring value. So I love brand partnerships, and I think that they are what brands will start moving towards as we get out of this pay for play. You know, well, we don't have that amount of money. Well, I'm not doing it. You know, it'll start to breed. You know, where's the value here? How do we work best together? How do we do that over a longer length of time? So I love the word brand partnerships.
Yeah, I use that word a lot. I have it on my website. That's like a service. Basically, it's, you know, it's not kind of like one side of the deal does everything and what the other person gets to keep it. It's literally a partnership. So 50-50, this is what you get, this is what I get. How are we gonna make it work together? We're trying to both work together, get our needs out there, but we wanna find ways to also promote the other person, the other brand's message as well.
We have another question over here. Oh, also I like it too, because I think with brand partnerships, it doesn't always mean money. It means mutually agreeable transactions. Mutually beneficial transactions. So sometimes that's money and sometimes it's not money. As long as both sides are benefiting, it doesn't matter what's being exchanged.
Hi, my name is Francesca. I'm a full-time travel influencer, and my question is, how important is niche, because you hear about it so much, and it's a big source of anxiety for me now, actually, because I've done hardcore travel for about 4 years, but I have other passions. I want to do hair, I want to do skin, and I know that I can do it, but I don't have a lot of that content already on my feed, and I'm not necessarily known as an expert in those things. And so I guess my question is, how do I start to approach those types of brands, or should I be approaching those brands without already having that on my feed? Just basically how important is niche?
I think, life change, and I think the same way your niche, because a lot of people talk about niche. Before I have my babies, all my followers are, single women and all that. Now I have 2 girls, and I have a lot of moms now, and I don't know, I think you need to be strategic, with your posts and all that, and teach them. And sometimes I know I lost, single girls, and now I have a lot of moms. So I don't know, I think you need to teach your audience, and when you say about the brands, start to post, some, I don't know, if you like hair, I don't know nothing about hair, but if you like hair, start to, post about your product, the product you use in your hair, and later you can reach out the brands, because I don't know, I think so if you reach the brands and they don't see anything in your feed, they will be, I don't know if, you understand me? So don't worry about the niche. People grow with you and follow you, and I don't know, I have a very close relationship with my followers. I send message to them, I talk with a lot of people and I don't know who they are. Say, hi, good morning, how's your day? People from Mexico, from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, New York, I don't know, I think people, they follow you for, the way you are and everything. So your niche, they change, but they go with you. So you can be very, and with a lot of grace, change your niche with no problem. So it's my thought.
Oh, I was gonna say, I totally agree with that. One really cool thing that I saw a few influencers in your network do is if they were in a specific niche, do a few polls and about like, would you like to see about hair, makeup, whatever you're looking into, and then actually show the brands. Like, I have 1,000 women that like want to see my hair routine. Like, they said yes in their poll or a certain percentage or something like that. And I think I just thought it was so smart, and I was just like, it was a great way to like transition into it in a way where you might still get it at least for product, if not paid, depending on big audiences.
I was gonna say, just like, this is from me, like, knowing your content, there's a lot that you can do that tie into travel, but also extend into other like categories. So like, you're on the beach lot in the Caribbean, what sunscreen do you use that doesn't make black girls look ashy? How's your twistout always popping? Because mine looks like crap when I travel a lot. Like, what are your favorite travel beauty products? Like bikinis or like fold up towels. Like, there's a lot of things you can do, like incorporating products into what you already do. That'll kind of like come to the top, and then you can start pitching that out. Because you use stuff anyway, so just like throw those in.
And people love the person behind it, what's going on. They want to know other things about you too, and changing up your content now and then. I don't know, they might find it a little more interesting.
Yeah, they're following you, and kind of to what she was saying, integrate those things that you're thinking about into your current content. So yeah, you're a black girl, right? You travel. How do you maintain your hair? You like doing hair, so start to have that conversation. Yeah, like, and there are a myriad of things you can think about and the ways that those things cross over. Niche is important though, because the world we live in now has become niche. I don't know if people realize it, but the big brand stuff and the generalized market stuff is going away and things are becoming niche. But it's not something you have to be afraid of, because as an influencer, as long as you remain authentic, you'll start to find the niche of the things that you like. So I'm sure there are niches in your travel content that you may not be familiar with, right? But that's based and represented on your audience, who's following, who's going, these places you're going. Certain people don't get anything from that content, certain people do. So it's about continuing to, research and define what the niches are. You don't have to be scared of them because you'll naturally find your niche, but know that that's especially in the marketing PR world, that's a term that helps define, better ways to utilize you or better ways to have you work with partners or projects or, brands. I don't think it's something you have to be scared of. I think it's something just to us want to kind of own it. Whatever those other things that you want to start integrating that into your content, find creative ways to do it, and before you know it, you'll take a poll, and now everybody will want to know, what is that hair product you're using when you're on the beach or what have you.
I have bad news. It's 8 o'clock. So that means we have to wrap up. Can I thank you guys for being here? Let's give everybody a round of applause. I think this conversation was really great. What do you guys think? Yes. I put this together and I learned a lot, so I have a favor to ask you before I dismiss you guys. Our photographer here is taking a lot of wonderful pictures. And one of the things that I want to do is, speaking of being influencers and getting people to return on your investment, I want to make this room look full. So can you guys get in close and then so we can have a big, so it's not a lot of holes.
You all can all post this picture. We can all post this picture. It's gonna be a good picture. It's gonna be a good picture.
And then just look at the speakers and just smile like they're saying the most wonderful thing ever. Yes, I am staging photos, which you guys are not, this is not new to you. Yeah. And smile, and look at, act like you're laughing. I guess that's the most. Mary, say something funny too. I know you got something that she can say. Thank you guys. You got some good stuff? One more. Okay.
You guys know that laugh. Work with influencers. You see these questions. All of them.
And when and speakers don't go anywhere because I do want to get into photos with you guys as well. So without further ado, that is all. Please, make sure you get your last business cards. Take all the candy, cookies, chips, goldfish. If you got kids, this is for them. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Stratosphere. Stratosphere has a gift for everyone. I almost forgot.
Yes. Someone can do another bag. You gotta start.
Any last submissions?
Kristen, you get to pick. Okay.
Alexis Corral.
Congratulations, Alexis. Wait, should we take pictures of her getting whatever it is she's giving? Come on, Alexis, come on. We just talked about taking all this great content. You gotta give me some content for being here. Yeah. Alexis, you should do an unboxing.
And the gift too.